Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to introduce our next presenters. Before I do, I'd like to remind everyone that at the back of the room, there's a QR code on the right side. As you're walking out, if you take a picture of that, you can, answer the survey, which will help us provide and improve anything that we need to in the future. So thank you for that. And in terms of the virtual attendees, if you have any questions during this presentation, please put it in the Zoom chat. And as a reminder, at the end of the presentation, we will be taking about 1 or 2 questions. Okay? So I'd like to introduce to you from Improving, which is our platinum sponsor for today's event. We have Lynn Bartlett, Director of Consulting, and Tonya Guadiz, also Director of Consulting. Today's title is Leading with Agility. Unleash your inner leader without the C-suite swagger.
All right. Thank you, Dawn. And I appreciate you saying the whole title, because I'm just going to say, welcome to Leading with Agility. The rest of that is a mouthful. Yeah. I am Tonya Guadiz, Director of Consulting from Improving in our Dallas office. A little bit about me. I began my career as a developer and quickly learned that was not where I wanted to be. So I moved into doing more systems, business analysis, some software testing, and eventually transitioned into roles that were more of a liaison between technology and business. I enjoy working with stakeholders and product owners to figure out what problems they're trying to solve, and then work with technology to figure out how we can help. I have spent the bulk of my career as a consultant, which means that I often walk into clients with no real authority and no fancy title. So that's why this topic is near and dear to my heart. And Lynn?
Well, and similarly, I started as a software developer as well back in the 80s, and I actually loved it quite a bit. But one thing that I thought was missing was the connection between business and IT. It was always, we don't know what they're doing over there in IT. We just know it's expensive. So I switched over to the project side because I wanted them to get a feel for what they're building. I thought that was really important to make those connections, which brought me to the Agile space. I've spent almost my entire career as a consultant as well. And same thing, you walk in there and you can lead, but you don't have to be the head leader. So welcome to our talk.
All right, thanks, Lynn. So we've told you a little bit about ourselves. Now the question is, why are we here today? Why did we make the trip to Austin? Why did many of you make the trip to Austin? It's not just because I was craving voodoo donuts, although we're probably going to make a pit stop there on the way home. We are here to talk about leadership and leading without authority. Leadership behavior significantly shapes an organization's culture, and it has a direct impact on organization performance, profit and loss, employee engagement, retention, and achieving goals. Yet despite the direct correlation between leadership, culture, and results, there are many people in positions of leadership who lack the necessary soft skills to promote team unity, encourage engagement, improve retention, and achieve results. Companies are starting to realize this. They know that a change is needed. And so this shift away from a traditional boss is opening up opportunities for all of us. We can all demonstrate leadership from within our teams, regardless of our title or our role. It is no longer about that person with the big corner office and the C-suite swagger. You know, the one who walks around getting all the attention. They're kind of bold, a little bit brash, very self-confident, maybe a little bit arrogant. I can see by faces that some of you have a person in mind. We've probably all encountered that. Now, Lynn, who does that description remind you of?
Well, Tonya, I am in Austin, Texas, right? And you did say swagger. So the only name that came to mind for me was Mick Jagger.
Okay, so I thought she might go with like a previous boss or something, but you know what? We can work with Mick Jagger. Because honestly, for the past 5 decades, who has more swagger than Mick Jagger? He is the iconic frontman of one of the most famous bands in history. And As such, he could be equated to that C-suite leader with the swagger. But if Mick was making all of the decisions for the band all by himself without input from anyone else, would the Stones have achieved the same level of success? No. No.
Yeah.
Thank you. They would not. If you didn't have Keith, Brian, Bill, Charlie, and their original producer, Andrew, they would not have many of their greatest hits. Because one person making all the decision, not real leadership. Successful leadership requires humility, collaboration, and empowerment to work together that makes music that resonates with people worldwide. So today, when we talk about leadership, we're not talking about the authority and the title. When I talk about leaders, I mean everyone in this room. We all have the ability to lead from wherever we are. We all have the skills to get others to work together to achieve common goals. Because Agile leadership is a mindset, not a title. And as much as I love a good discussion on leadership, we did want to add a little bit of fun. And we're in Austin, and South by Southwest is coming up, so kind of had to have a little bit of a music theme going here. So we've got a game we're going to incorporate into this. Now, of course, the main point is leadership, thinking about that, learning some strategies. But let's have a bit of fun. So as you're listening today, we're going to have you thinking or listening for certain things. It's kind of like that game where you take a shot when you hear a certain word in corporate bingo, like win-win or synergy, or when you see Taylor Swift on the Jumbotron at the NFL game. But it's too early for shots. Most days, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, most days. Let's just say. And there's no Taylor Swift. But what we want you to do is keep track of bands, artists, song titles, or lyric references that you hear as we're going through the discussion today. You don't need to note the specifics, so you don't need to write down Mick Jagger and Taylor Swift. Just note you've already heard two. At the end, we'll throw up the list of the various references that we've made, and whoever gets them all or gets the closest will earn our respect. That's RESPECT. And a prize. And so, Lynn, what have we got for prizes?
Well, today for prizes, we have the Professional Product Owner by our own Don McGrail. Great book if you haven't read it. We have decks of powerful questions. And we have blow-up guitars.
Okay, I know which of those I would pick. You guys can choose, but I know what I pick. So as we embark on this journey today, don't stop believing, because you can unlock the qualities needed to unleash your Agile leadership from within.
All right, so we want to start out. We want to know what you're thinking. What traits do you feel are crucial for an Agile leader? We'll take, oh yeah, there's hands up, good.
I think Dawn's bringing a mic around.
Wait a minute.
Empathy.
Nice.
Excellent. Others? Empathy, clarity, yes.
Great.
All right, I see a hand in the back. Empowerment and trust.
Trust.
Yes, okay, so I've heard trust, empowerment, communication, clarity, empathy, and curiosity came from the back. Active listening.
Listening.
I almost feel like you guys have like seen this.
I was going to
before.
say, that's it. Good on everybody. Yeah, okay.
You've just hit the main points. Thank you. Welcome. All right.
And y'all come up later and get a prize at the end. So
That's true.
we were going to go hand them out, but I don't think that's going to work out for now.
Yeah.
Those are
yeah.
really great examples. We're going to be discussing most of those in this talk today.
Yes. Excellent. So those were great examples. One thing I want to do before we get completely into just leadership is to have you guys think about the difference between being a manager and being a leader. Does this quotation resonate with you? You know, if you think about people that you've worked with, have you ever worked with somebody who was more of the boss than a leader? More concerned with doing things right than doing the right thing? There are a number of differences between a leader and a manager. I'm not going to read this to you, and we're not going to go into all of these in detail today because we'd be here all day. We are going to pick a few of these and talk about them, and you guys hit on many of them. We'll go into detail on those. We'll also talk about strategies that you can use for improving your skills in these specific areas. And we'll start by looking at just a I'm going to say a couple of my favorites. You know, when I think of people I've worked with who I would say are great leaders and that I would want to work with again, one of the first things that comes to mind is that they are adaptable. Leaders embrace change. They look at challenges as opportunities for growth, learning, and innovation. You know, they're able to adapt quickly. A problem arises, they can adjust their plans. It's not stay the course, it's no, adjust, come up with a new creative solution to deal with it. Great leaders are also good relationship builders. They prioritize building trust and collaboration within the team. Good Agile leaders understand that a collaborative team works together effectively to get the project done. They understand that building an environment of trust where the team knows that they can share information, they can share their thoughts and concerns without fear of judgment or criticism is critical to that team. Great leaders are also empowering. It's not just the I'm going to tell you what to do, but it's as a leader within the team. I know my teammates' skills, I know their expertise, and I actually encourage them to use those diverse skills for the team's success. And finally, this one sticks with me because I have worked with many people who were in leadership positions, but they were not part of the team. A great leader is part of the team. A leader is not standing off to the wings or backstage waiting for everyone else to do the work. Think about if you go to a concert, you know, a live concert, any type of music. To make that show happen night after night in different cities requires more than the band or the artist. You have truckers to get the equipment there on time, stagehands, the tour manager, sound engineers, light engineers, the people that work the venues, from the ushers to the ticket takers to the concession stands and merchandise sellers, and probably a lot more that I've forgotten. But imagine the collaboration and communication that needs to take place to make that a reality. While each of these tasks need to get done, think of setting up the stage or tuning the instruments. Someone from within that large team of people steps forward and says, I have the skills, the expertise, and the willingness to contribute to make this happen. That is very much like an Agile team. Takes on that leadership mindset, steps forward and says, I will lead us through this task. So, Lynn, we've talked about traits of a leader. Now, what would you say? How do we see them in practice?
Well, I know the word mindset, it's on my badge. It's so important. We hear, are you doing Agile or are you being Agile? And Agile leaders are being Agile. They're not off stage. They are embracing the Agile principles to bring satisfaction and excellence to their companies and to their clients. Agile leaders are taking ownership, trying to break down silos so that there can be a shared understanding and they can ensure that delivery is happening early and often. And Agile leaders welcome change. So whether it's a change in the set list or whether it's a change in the market, they're going to be there to help determine that new path and continue the journey. So for a minute, I want you to think about your best concert experience. The band is humming and the audience is energized, and there's something in the air tonight. Now think about that band and think about it as your team, a collaborative group of people that are motivated to deliver value, to problem solve, and to create a sustainable working environment. And we can't get by without respect and reflection to keep the audience coming back encore after encore. All right, so let's talk about the sustainability for a minute. So how do you avoid being that one-hit wonder? Because no one wants to burn out and fade away. So that is why Agile leaders are so important. Learning to be a good leader is a lot like learning to play an instrument. You can learn the music, but unless you take those next steps to head toward mastery and make it your own, then the teachings are lost. To me, it's like our shuhari, right? We learn something, then we try to head toward mastery. And then at that point, we can break it and we can make it something that's uniquely us. All right, so let's keep with our theme though. Let's talk about mindset, skill set, and determination. And you don't have to be at the top of the chain to do that. That's everywhere. So where do you show your leadership? Well, maybe you're an individual contributor and you're working on pair programming or process. Maybe you're a great mentor to other people on the team. So maybe you're at the team level and you're active listening. You're making sure that everyone is heard and valued. There's an area of safety where they can work. Or maybe you're a manager setting the tempo and delegating authority, providing team autonomy, and guidance and support for the team through the toughest audiences. And if something isn't working, shake it off and welcome change. So you can see it takes a large group of people to put a product together or production together. And Bon Jovi may be living on a dream, but in order to keep your stakeholders happy, you need more than prayers. You need to give them something to believe in. All right, sorry about all the puns. I think there's a few more, so prepare. All right, so challenges. Wow. You know, I think this past year has been quite challenging for a lot of Agilists. And that's something that kind of brought us into wanting to do this talk of, you know, you can't see an Agile leader as someone who's just down with the team. They're everywhere. They're working at the team level, they're working at the manager level, they're working all the way to the top. So let's talk about a few of the challenges. So first of all, resistance to change. Well, if you think about the Beatles challenged the status quo and changed the way that pop music is viewed, the whole landscape of that. Leaders that embrace change encourage innovation, experimentation. They're the early adopters, they're the trailblazers, and they gain a competitive advantage. Look at misaligned vision and goals. Well, to me, that's most of the bands from the 60s, 70s, and some from the 80s, where there's just a bunch of leaders with different visions, and that's why they couldn't keep it together. Maybe they did some great things, but their overall story was not so great, right? And not great for business. So Agile leaders collaborate across teams and organizations with open communication, feedback, and engagement. And last, we're going to look at ineffective communication. It's like a faulty amp. The sound's distorted for the teams. Agile leaders encourage clear, concise messaging, setting a positive example for others. Now we've discussed traits and challenges. Let's talk about some actions that we can take.
All right. Lynn just mentioned, you know, the resistance to change. And I'm going to say change is hard, especially when you're facing resistance. So what do? You know, according to Ken Blanchard, instead of forcing change on people, we make them a part of the change. Sometimes easier said than done. But by being part of the change, people are more accepting and more ready to adapt. And one way to do that is to lead by example. And leading by example is not just early adoption of a tool or process. Sometimes to be a true leader and lead by example, you have to open yourself up, put yourself in a position that's a little bit uncomfortable, and make yourself vulnerable. Not the easiest thing in the world to do. Years ago, I worked for a company that was acquired by a much larger company. And for 15 months, we went through what was called a transition period, or the merger of two companies. During that time, my team didn't know if we would have jobs at the end of this. We didn't know what those jobs would be if we were lucky enough to have jobs. We had no idea who our new managers would be. There were a lot of questions, a lot of uncertainty, and a lot of fear. And that impacted not just my team, but pretty much every team at that company going through it. It was like the elephant in the room now. No one wanted to talk about it. We sort of became those people where if you didn't talk about the change, you didn't have to accept it. But that wasn't good for anyone. And so after many months of this, I finally took what I'll say was a stretch for me and made myself vulnerable to the team by opening up about my own uncertainty, my own fears about the future. Because once those conversations started, once we all became vulnerable within the team, we could have conversations where we were supportive of each other. It wasn't complaining about, hey, this changed, but it became okay, is this change an opportunity for us? Instead of feeling like it was forced on me, it's a bigger company. What opportunities do I have? Maybe I no longer have to be in this role. I can move into something else. So that vulnerability led to the team feeling more cohesion and having an environment of trust. And I know, Lynn, you've kind of gone through some similar things.
Yeah. As consultants, we're usually walking in not when things are perfect, but when things are possibly on fire. Yet business has to continue. And I've been lucky enough in my career to work for some of the same people over and over at different clients, which has been great. One time I was at a client where, of course, it was on fire. The team had been exposed a little bit to Agile, but they were ready to start sprints right then, and they wanted to see progress and they wanted to see value delivered. So we did the best we could. We got together a backlog. We got together some practices that maybe we could start with, and I talked to the manager and I said, okay, we know what to expect, right? This is going to be sprint 1. We may deliver something, we may not. Sure, sounds great. Well, guess what? We didn't deliver anything. But there was so much goodness happening with the team, learning the practices, getting access to things, all the things that happen on that first sprint. And the leader asked if he could come in and give the team a pep talk. Well, his background was in sports. So he decided to come in to a development team, all on Zoom, all their faces on Zoom, and they'd all felt like they'd made some progress. No, we didn't deliver, but they'd made some progress. And he said, you just don't care. This is not the way that I can have people work for me. And, you failed this one. And I'm watching faces melt on Zoom. And it was very discouraging. And I thought, okay, something has to happen. So I stopped. Luckily, I've built up some trust with this manager. So I said, I'm going to respectfully interrupt you. And I'm going to let you know that, no, we didn't deliver anything. However, the strides we made in becoming a team have meaning. And so I'm really proud of what they've done. And I think we're going to do really great things next time. And he backed off a little bit. He goes, okay, I probably came on too strong, because a lot of them haven't really even worked with him before and haven't heard these words before. It's just the way he gives pep talks. But what it did was it spurred so much conversation in the team because they felt like someone was defending them. And I was so excited to do that. And as I said the words, I knew that I was either going to be having a great team or I was going to be fired. But at that point, it just didn't matter. It was important to build up the team. So let's talk about vulnerability with managers for a minute. And as Tonya knows, as we've been putting this together, this is the most vulnerable place for me right here in front of all of you. I'm new to public speaking. I really want to do it. And I think this message is super important, but it's not comfortable. And I think of Mick Jagger singing before 100,000 people, and it just blows my mind. I can't even imagine that. And, I could sing. I could sing right now, but I won't because I can't. And the thing that comes with being vulnerable is having boundaries. And so remember that when someone's being vulnerable with you, sometimes it crosses over, and it's not vulnerability, it's oversharing. So sometimes, like Tonya said, her manager had to talk about an acquisition. Really scary. Not only for Tonya's team, but that manager too. They're probably feeling some vulnerability about, wow, is there a place for me in this company? So that's one thing they might share with you. They might share with you that they're going to be acting a little differently. Maybe there's some personal issues going on with them. And as long as they're not oversharing, you don't want to hear about the details of their medical, their last medical appointment. But as long as they are giving it to you of, hey, if I seem a little strange, I'm going through some stuff at home, they're being vulnerable, which makes them more human and more approachable. And we all need to live with grace and kind of allow for that. So it's really, really important to me. So next, let's talk about living with integrity. Do you walk your talk. And sometimes it's very hard to do that in a corporate world. Your integrity may be totally intact, yet things happen and you are the message deliverer. So walk your talk. And when you have to deliver those messages, that's where some of the vulnerability comes in, where you're talking to people about, I know we said we weren't going to lay off people, but I just got word that we're going to lay off people. And my job may be on the line as well. Those are difficult conversations. And some of the people that I think are the best in this business have been through this. It's tough. So live with your integrity and you can get through that. So, and last I'm going to talk about encouraging trust. Trust to me as an improver, just for a minute, I'm going to step aside and be an improver. Trust changes everything is on our website. And when I was first working for improving, I thought, that's interesting. It doesn't say, you know, we build great software or we're the smartest people in the room. And now I know why, because a trusting relationship is extremely important with the client, and trust has a tax. If I walk in and it takes me 6 months to earn the trust of people, that's 6 months where somebody else is checking on me. Maybe they have more people in a meeting. And I talk to my teams about this, about how do we earn the trust? We deliver, right? When we deliver, there's less people eyeing, like, what does their Jira board look like? You know, there's less of that going on. So, and there's the more people, the more dollars. I even got them to sit in a meeting one time and they're looking around, there's like 20 people in the meeting. And they're like, do you know how much that meeting costs? It's like, a lot. Costs a lot. All right.
Okay. All right. So Lynn just ran us through trust, and earlier we talked about relationship building. And I would say that in order to build good relationships and build trust, you need effective communication. Now, a lot of people, when they think of great communicators, they think of somebody, a speaker, who is influential and charismatic, or who, you know, get up and sing, whatever. I would say that's only part of the equation. In fact, it's an incomplete picture. To develop good communication skills, you have to work on all areas of communication, not just speaking, but writing and listening as well. Effective communication is being able to share your thoughts and ideas with others in a manner that they can understand. But it's also listening to what they say, interpreting it, and responding in a manner that builds a mutual connection. Your message is more than your words. It also encompasses how that message is delivered. Think about facial expressions, body language, this versus this. Think about, you know, when you're listening to somebody or you get an email, the tone is a part of that message. Have you ever opened an email, read it, and thought it has a bit of a tone? Like the person might have been a little frustrated, a little snarky. I've definitely gotten those. And that's all part of communication. Another big part of it is being able to adapt your style to the situation and the audience. So those are all factors within communication. And as far as you're honing your skills, it's important to build your communication skills because it can help you build relationships, resolve conflict, and impact decisions. Think about our current work environment, you know, largely remote or hybrid for many of us. Good communication can mean the difference between a team that is collaborative, hitting their goals, and well-aligned, versus a team that is not communicating, is misaligned, and completely misses the goals. So some strategies that you can build in your everyday interactions to improve your communication, avoid a communication breakdown, and develop your leadership skills from within your team. First, it's important to focus your message. Organize your thoughts. You don't have to respond to that instant message instantly. I mean, I know it's in the name, but you can take a minute, you know, take a moment to really put your thoughts together before responding. And this applies to impromptu conversations as well. You run into someone in the break room, they start asking some questions. If you don't have a good answer at that moment, or you want time to sort of collect how you want to respond, say that. You know what, I'd like to schedule this discussion for Friday. I would rather get a well-organized response from somebody, a response that is, you know, clear, concise, to the point, then somebody just spew a bunch of words at me and I have to try and find the answer in those words. Also, know your audience. John Bon Jovi said, "I've seen a million faces and I've rocked them all." Bon Jovi knew what his audience wanted and expected, and he knew how to deliver. So think about the recipient of your message. Does that person prefer a quick instant message, a phone call, a text? Do they want an email? And if they want an email, is it somebody who wants like just 2 bullet points, just give me the highlights? Or is it somebody who likes a lot of detail? Knowing your audience and knowing how they like to receive the information will help you focus that message. Active listening. This was somebody threw that one out. And I think this is a real key to being a good leader. And active listening is listening with intent. Few things that you can do. I would say the number one thing you can do when listening actively is to remove distractions. Prior to 2020, when we all went remote, I would have actually said, I thought I was a pretty good active listener. I thought I was good at not getting distracted. Then I started working remote and figured out that I needed to work on this. Think about those team meetings or one-on-one conversations you have where, if you're like me, you've got one monitor in front of you and you've got multiple monitors off to the side. I would find myself with Teams messages popping up over here, email popping up over here, my phone's buzzing over here, and that person on the screen in front of me was not getting 100% of my attention. So one of the things I had to do was remove those distractions, turn off the other monitors, put the phone away, and show that person that I was really listening to what they had to say. Another thing that you can practice is to make sure that you are not thinking about your response while they're still talking. If you start crafting your reply in your head, you're missing what they're saying. So my tactic was to write down a word or two that would remind me to follow up at the end of the conversation. Rather than interrupting or letting my thoughts wander, 1 or 2 words. As we wrapped up, we would circle back to those. That brings me to the last point, the summarizing, the circling back. As you're wrapping up the conversation, ask open-ended questions, take your notes and follow up on those, but restate what they have said and make sure that both of you have the same understanding. You don't want to walk away from the conversation and I'm like, yeah, she just told me we're meeting on Tuesday, and she's like, oh, we solved it all. And I'm like, wait, what? Not good. So, use that as an opportunity to follow up and make sure you're building that rapport. And then have the right attitude. And I don't mean positivity and smiles all the time with puppies and rainbows. What I'm talking about here is when you're talking with somebody, don't think what's in it for me. Think, how can I help? How can we work together to accomplish a goal? This is a great time to practice empathy, which is another one I heard out there. Put yourself in the other person's position. Look at things from their viewpoint. First of all, it will open you up to new ideas. But secondly, it shows that you respect others' viewpoints. And again, that goes towards building the relationship and building trust. And finally, feedback. And this is specific to communication styles. So if you are working on a certain technique that you want to improve, ask somebody within your team, somebody you trust, hey, I'm going to work on improving my active listening. In the next 2 to 3 weeks, could you give me some feedback? Let them tell you how you are doing. Do you still need to improve upon other things? It's not criticism. It's an opportunity for you to grow. So we've talked about communication and leading by example. Lynn, what else would you suggest people work on to develop their leadership skills?
Oh, my favorite one, self-awareness. So just a quick story. When we were practicing this the other day, I added in something new, and Tonya's like, I've never heard that before. Tonya used to be my manager. And when I was early on in my career at improving, we were talking about, where did I want to go? What did I want to do? Do I want to be a manager? And I said, yeah, I think I'd like to be, do something with leadership and be a manager. And she asked me the most important question I'd ever heard. Why? Why? I don't know. So I had to think about it for a minute. And she said, are you doing it for money? Or are you doing it for title? What are you doing it for? And those are nice. Those, they're okay. They're not bad. People expect a lot out of you after that. But I started thinking about what were the things that I really like to do. And we can go to the next and talk about some of the things that you should think about. Reflection, first of all. I had to think about, do I want to manage people? Do I not want to manage people? That's a big deal. If you're get moved into a management position that's a people manager position and you don't like to manage people, you're in the wrong job. So that's a really important question to ask yourself. Ask when during a reflection, think about when you were happiest at what you were doing. What traits were you doing there? Maybe you were leading. And so you can bring that forward with, this is how I'd like to grow. Assessment, strengths and weaknesses, same type of thing. And looking at reflection and assessment brings authenticity. You have seen leaders where you say, it just doesn't seem like you really believes all that. Or maybe they're not a people person and they're sitting in your one-on-one and you can tell that they are off somewhere in another planet. So be an authentic leader for you. In order to get there, feedback. It should not sound like a squeaky mic at a concert. It shouldn't hurt your ears. As a matter of fact, it should help. And so look for trusted advisors, people that have your best interest at heart. Brene Brown says, you don't have to take comments from the cheap seats. Don't go look for somebody you think, I'm going to impress him and get some feedback from him. Look for the people that care about you and give them time to get the feedback that you want and be specific. This is the type of job I'm looking for. How do you think I do at that? What do you think I need to know to get to that place? And then be ready to learn. Take some action on what you hear.
Okay, we have covered a great deal of information today, and hopefully you will remember some of the strategies and tips and tricks, but if you take away only one thing, I want you to remember that leadership traits are not some sort of magical, mythical traits bestowed upon just a select few people at birth. They can be learned and they can be developed through hard work. And so we are going to ask you guys just to take a minute, jot down, and this is kind of your action here, come up with your action plan. One trait you want to work on and one action that you commit to doing over the next 2 weeks to help build your leadership skills from within the team. And then we will ask a couple of people to share. We'll give them like a minute to think before we pose the question. If anyone's ready to share, you can go ahead and raise your hand. Okay, I see some hands going up. I think Dawn's going to bring the mic around.
Mine's going to be active listening. I find myself distracted by the monitors and the Teams chats and the emails and the phone. And so really, I like the idea of turning off one of the monitors and just really focusing on my team and what they're saying. That is definitely on my list.
Awesome.
That's great.
So focusing on the communication aspects, more specifically in writing, in meeting planners, setting out desired outcomes, what the purpose of the meeting is, and any type of pre-read or expectation and ground rules going in to be able to collaborate better.
I love that. Organizing and focusing in. That's great.
Within active listening, I want to specifically focus on not thinking about my response while the person is still talking. I feel like I'm a pretty good active listener, but that's like the one part where I struggle.
Yeah, I was in a coaching class and they made us wait 3 minutes after the person said something before we could respond. And in that time, you would lose what you were thinking you were going to say. It's like, okay, I was gonna, oh gosh, now I don't know what I was going to say. So that's a really good one. Really good one.
Would you like to take another one?
Yeah, let's take one more. I know we're keeping an eye on the clock too, so you guys have break time in between.
All right, so on the aspect of knowing your audience, communication preferences, there I have key people who I work with. I know my communication preferences. I don't know theirs. So having a conversation on that, like there's so many channels to talk about, and So I think that might be a good question to have.
Good. Thank
I-
you. Yeah. All right. So I am going to bump us by this, but even though you didn't share, take this away. Take away, put together an action plan, like Lynn mentioned, ask a trusted advisor for feedback. I am throwing our musical references up here. I know we're about close to time, so if there are questions, I think we said we could take 1 or 2 questions, and you can swing by the improving booth and get the prize. By the way, did anyone get them all? I just thought for my own curiosity, did anyone get?
Oh, nice.
We buried some of them pretty good. Okay.
All right, I have a question around followership. So you talked a little bit about, kind of the individual contributor and those team members can step up into that leadership role from any place. How do you view the Agile followership role, right? Because you're not a leader unless there are followers. How do you effectively play that or navigate that balance?
The leader followership. So give me a little bit more about that. They're following Agile, but they don't consider themselves as a leader.
Maybe so, right?
Oh, there you are. I'm looking around. Okay.
Maybe that's exactly it, right? Like maybe they're a team member that doesn't necessarily want to lead, but they want to contribute really well.
Mhm.
How do you contribute well as a follower in that setting, as a critical part of the team?
Sure. I don't know if you've ever read Radical Candor by Kim Scott. Oh my gosh. So she talks exactly to what you're talking about. She talks about rock stars and superstars, and it's a whole change in culture. What we used to do is if you stayed in one place too long, you were stale. You weren't motivated. What she's saying now is you have people in place that are the best mentors. They don't mind seeing people go past them. They should be rewarded for the fact that they are building your future leaders, right? The superstars are the ones that want to shoot past it. Like, I want to keep going. And part of it is those people who don't want to go, they need to consider themselves. Don't say, I'm just, I know Bob has spoken about this before. If you say, oh, I'm just a Scrum Master. Well, I'm just the product owner, so I don't get to have a say in this. It's like, stop saying you're just anything. Say, no, I do this and I rock it. So, thank you for the question.
Any others? Because I think we're right at time.
All right. Thank you so much. Put your hands together
Thank
for
you.
Lynn and Tonya from Improving. That was a fantastic presentation. And remember, please go ahead and scan for the survey in the back of the room. It's hanging. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the day.